Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. It is a lovely afternoon. Hello, how are you? This afternoon, we're going to be having some Astro talks with my beloved soul fam, Clarkson. So, whenever he's ready, he's gonna hop up on here. Astro talks. Here we go, Clarkson. Let me get. Alrighty. I'm excited. I haven't been on here for a little bit. It's been quite the busy week or so. It's been quite the busy year, to be technical. But it is coming to a beautiful, beautiful close soon. But it's like a beginning. I don't know if you all relate to that, but it's definitely a nice fresh beginning. It's gonna be a strong one too. A strong one. So I'm excited. I love me some Clarkson. So yes, there he goes right now. I'm excited. We're gonna get him on here. We're gonna talk about some astrology. We're gonna talk about some other topics, some spirituality talk. And Clarkson's amazing. So if you haven't checked him out, go check him out. Go buy his book and the 8 Principles of Clarkson, and go check out his podcast, because he's always talking about something great. So let's do it. I'm excited. Let me get some people up in this joint to come chat with us. I haven't had astrology talk in a while too, so this will be exciting. Okay. All right, and let me know when you're ready. I will shoot you an invite and you can hop right on, or shoot me an invite, or request, I should say. All right. Awesome.
Okay, does it work? There we go.
Peace,
There you are.
love.
Peace.
What's going?
Oh my God, it's so good to see you.
I know, you too. I'm
It's
excited.
been so long.
It has. It's been a minute. It's been a while.
Wow.
But
We here.
all things happen
Peace to
exactly
you.
right on time.
Yeah.
Right
Peace to
on
the
time.
universal family. Peace to you. Oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy to be here. Like, this is amazing, y'all. Um, I really wanted to set this up, y'all, because I really want y'all to see how wonderful this woman is. Like, she has damn near changed my life over the past few months. Just really introspecting and listening to the wisdom that she's been giving me. Like, it's changed my life. And I'm like, you know what? It's about time for us to just have another conversation.
Yes.
Like, this woman right here is a very special woman. And I just like, you know what? Let's just get on the panel and let the energy flow. That's
Yeah.
basically what I want us to do.
Yeah. It's been since day one. We chatted on a podcast. Very first,
Yeah, I feel you.
and the energy just
Mm-hmm.
flowed. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
That energy
definitely.
flowed. Yeah.
But I
So
want to kick it off by asking you a question.
okay, let's do it.
Per- Personally, like as far as the spirituality in general, how has that changed your life? Like,
Wow. My life has changed drastically in the past few years, like drastically.
mm,
Um, it's so many, and I like to call this journey, and I think that many people may relate to that, but I like to call this journey one of finding my way back home. Does that make sense? I
definitely.
Yeah, I feel like all the things that have risen up in this particular chapter of my life have been more so it's like something you always knew, just being brought into your awareness. And I think that because we live in a world that's so limited, that is so boxed in and disconnected from who we naturally are, when you get to this space of awareness, you understand that all things are spiritual. There isn't anything that isn't. And so I think in some ways this has become for many like a community, a lane, and
Yeah.
with it comes so many stipulations and, you know, kind of all these different ideals about how it's supposed to look and how it's supposed to be. But I think that all that I've learned on this journey is that all things are spiritual. All things are spiritual. All things lead back home. We just aren't always aware of it, and so that's why we don't feel the fullness of it like we should, like we were made to.
I couldn't
That's
agree more.
to
Wow.
put it in a nutshell. You know.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more because, like, for me, spirituality has just been a journey. Because, like, when I first got into it, like you said, there was a lot of expectations, a lot of things that we thought we had to do, because we're spiritual. But, like, the more you go into the journey, it's like you only really learn this by living the journey, by it stretching it out. So, like, the longer I was into this life, I'm like, wow, it's not this one pattern, this one way. It's like a million different ways we can express spirituality.
Yep.
It's helped my life just because it's allowed me to introspect way more than I've ever done in my whole life. I've been able to look at myself and like, wow, bad
Yeah.
side, the good side, and how it affects others. Like
Yeah.
that's really how spirituality has helped me, just be able to see inside myself. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and I love that because it's when you're going through that process, it's so many things you experience. It's like you get your butt whooped. You know what I mean? Because you got to
Mm.
swallow that pill of self-awareness and self-accountability. So we're in a world where we're so repressed, and speaking about our emotions and even understanding what they are is not is not a huge conversation or even encouraged. It's like that comes with it. It takes looking at the looking in the mirror, looking at the pieces of yourself, and then going in the dark places, going in the depths, going in the parts that you may not even have understood but felt all these years, because it's not new to us. It's just we're now shining a light on it. and
Yeah.
and then but the beautiful thing is, once you get through these like you said, this introspect of your own emotions, your yourself, who you truly are, what actually sits right with you, what is your own mindset, what do you actually believe and feel about yourself, about life. When you get through that, like I like to call it the trenches, then yeah, on the other side of it is so much enlightenment. It's so much enlightenment. It's so much awareness. It's so much I'm gonna be on it's so much freedom, which is what jogged me to dive into this journey, because I felt at some point like the life that I was living was not my own. I'm like, well, how did I even end up here? You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking at my life and this is nothing like what I envision or what I feel inside or what I want. And I'm like, well, at that point I had no choice to take a look at, well, what brought me here and how do I get to wherever I'm going? Because I feel it. I may not be able to put a word to it initially, but I feel it. And it's like, once you get through the waters, you know what I mean? Once you get through the waters, there's so much in the depths of it. There's so much on the other side of it that to find that it's like it offers a world of freedom. You know what I mean? It offers a world of freedom.
Definitely a freedom in the mind too. Like
Hmm.
that's like one of the strongest places that you really free that, because like once you start getting free in the mind, your physical reality starts to change.
Yeah.
Because me personally, I would always limit myself to certain things that I could do and I couldn't do. But
Hmm.
once I started taking this journey, I'm like, wow, it's not so black and white. And once it clicked up here, my physical reality started to change. I'm like,
Yep.
whoa, this stuff is real. This
Yeah.
spiritual stuff is real. I'm living a whole different life now. Like I'm a
Yeah.
different person.
Literally.
That really made me click and then just go all the way in. Like, okay, let me learn this. Then I started getting excited to learn more. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I love that because for me, throughout so many years, I call it the 20 years. It was my 20 years of hell that I experienced.
Mm.
And throughout those years, I always tried to make a plan. Like I always, and mind you, it was never successful, but I always, or at least in my eyes, from my perspective at that point, but I always
Right.
felt like I had to know what I was doing because that's what I was taught. And it was like, well, what are you doing in life? What are you doing? Or what is your plan? What are you doing? What are you doing? And so for so many years, I felt like I had to know what I was doing. I had to, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then that's what I'm going to do. And then that's my next step. And that's my, and I felt like if I didn't know what I was doing, then I was never going to get anywhere. But in the process of me trying to always have it figured out and trying to figure out what I was doing for 20 years, I never knew what the hell I was doing and I never got anywhere. And it's like,
Yeah.
I think that the biggest freedom for me was letting go of having to have a plan and letting go of having to know where I'm going or what I'm doing. Because I realized at some point on this journey, like you said, once I broke through those ideas that, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not able to do that, I don't qualify for this, I don't qualify for that, I'm not, learned enough for that or educated enough for this. Once I broke through those, concepts, then it was like, damn, I don't know where I'm gonna be in the next 5, 10 years. I have no clue because now the possibilities are endless, and now I get to just learn myself every day and figure out exactly what it is I want to do, and then just go for it because that's what I feel in my soul. That's the passion. That's what feeds me. And now it's like, now it's so unknown, and it's wild how insecure I felt, and I'll leave it on this note. It's wild how insecure I felt for so many years trying to have a plan and how much security there is in not knowing. And it's not, I'm not to say that you don't, make plans and put it into place, because when you do get to a place where your ideas are flowing, you put it to action then. But
Mhm.
it's this concept, and it's like, if you've experienced it, then you understand exactly what I'm saying. You When you finally just don't know, you don't know what the future holds, it opens up a world of possibilities and it allows you to be, it's like you're free from limitations at that point. And now you can go anywhere. And the thing about it is, it's it's like you stop being it's a challenge, but it becomes a journey of now every crossroad that I bump into. Now you're just looking for solutions because you know that you can go this far. I know that I can go this far. I know that I can go here if that's where I want to go. I know that I can. And just like you said, once I changed my mindset, once I got into this, this point of awareness, and I started to dive into it, then now my physical experience has completely changed from what it was 3, 4 years ago. You know what I mean? And so me knowing that, it doesn't, it's like, for me, I get those days where I'm just like, yo, this shit is overwhelming. But knowing how much I've already done and how far I've already come and how much I've manifested into my life just by setting my mind to it, then it's always that challenge of, okay, so what can I do now? Okay, what can I do now? Where can I go now? And it's like, is
Mm.
that thing will keep you going? It will keep you going. It's freedom.
Yeah.
It really is.
That part you said earlier about the security and letting go really hit me like
Yeah.
big time.
Yeah.
Because for me personally, when I first started the spiritual journey, I'm like, okay, let me just find this person. I was still searching, still, right? I was still searching on my journey to find the quote unquote gurus of everything, to soak up all the knowledge. And it was cool for a while, but then I started to get tired doing it. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, I can't find this. I'm still searching, and I still can't find it. And then I got to the point where, like you said, just letting go,
Yeah.
losing all expectations, and then just living in the moment. And then I started realizing, instead of me, like, for example, 5 years ago, I'm nowhere near where I thought I would be based on the plans I made.
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, Clarkson thought I would be this type of person. I'm nowhere near that type of person, but I'm glad I'm not. I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm this person instead. You know what I'm saying? Because of the choices that end up happening. So for me, it's like letting go has probably been the best thing that's ever happened to me, because instead of me looking for the guru, I ended up finding the guru in me. I ended up finding out, like, wow, I'm actually the great person that I've been looking for this whole time. Now everywhere I go, I'm making those great experiences, and I'm like, wow. Once that clicked, things just, things got so much easier. I started attracting the subconscious things that I was always looking for, just by me doing my own thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow.
That was
That's
poetry. What you just said. That was poetry. You know, you saying I found what I've been looking for somewhere else. I found that in myself. I found the guru in me. And for me, it started with a religious journey because I was raised in a religion.
same.
And it wasn't one that I didn't believe in. It just was, I had so many questions. And at some point in my life, I'm like, I have all these questions, but nobody can answer my questions. And so, you know, maybe this is not the home for me. I need to find the place where I can get my questions answered. And so I searched and I researched and I visited tons of, you know, churches. And then I got into some of the the eldest religions, the eldest spiritual backgrounds. And I started researching those. And I thought that I was going to find, because I was always taught, you know, it's the one true church. You know what I mean? There's the one true church,
Yeah.
and that's the one that's going to get you into heaven. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
what I found in my search was that, man, the way all things intertwine, when you start really researching and diving into all of these different facets of life, and you see how they all intertwine, I realized that all roads lead back to home. And I realized that it's literally a big ass puzzle. Our existence is really a big puzzle. And when you lay out a puzzle to make it, you don't make it and then leave some pieces out and you're like, oh no, we're done. You know, you find all the pieces till you push the last one in. And it's a
Yeah.
whole puzzle. And I realized that we're not, you know, we are, it's like Abraham Hicks says, words don't teach, experiences do. And all our
Boom.
words are a way for us to relay and to, you know, um,
Express.
yeah, to
Hmm.
relay our experiences. All our words are is a way for us to try to communicate with each other the things that we know, the things that we've experienced. And throughout history, that's always been the case. And so you've got all these different versions of the same story. And it's not to say that there aren't millions and millions and billions of experiences, because there are. We've created those, we've manifested those, but they all come from the same place. And all of these experiences and possibilities and stories and things that have been passed down are someone's perception. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
the way that someone could explain what their experiences were or what their knowledge was. And so we receive it from our own perception. And so it's like this never ending just
Yeah.
translation of an experience.
And that also unlocks the doors too. It was like what you were saying before about the puzzles. Sometimes even if we have all the pieces, we can't necessarily put them together on our own.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to experience things with other people, and
Mm,
they'll help us put that puzzle piece right where it needs to be. But
mm,
we'll try to go on our own solo dolo journey, not realizing you're not necessarily going to really understand the experience properly unless you go through it and experience it with other people who need to be in your life. People who you have to experience, even if they're bad for you, you have to experience that, and that's something I had to learn the hard way. Like
yeah.
I thought I would only attract good experiences, but sometimes you won't know what a good experience is unless you've experienced the bad, and that's
This is
crazy.
what I love about the universe, and this is what I love about conversations like these, because this is what the epitome, what you just said is the epitome of my perception of what God is. You know what I mean? Like at some
Mm-hmm.
point I respect all religions and all belief systems because, like I said, I view them all as pieces of the puzzle. And
Bingo.
so I learned that, you know, plus we're manifesting based on our emotions, on how we feel about things. We're going to see what we believe. And that's really what, you know, I learned in this journey. There were so many things I believed for so long that I thought were happening to me. And then I realized they were happening to me because I believed them. And when I changed my belief system, I realized that now new things are able to happen to me. Different things are happening to me. And it's not because, you know, miraculously people in my life and things in my life stopped happening and they changed. It's because I believe something different now. And I didn't realize that I was the source of that for a long time. So, and I call it oppression. I lived in a mindset of oppression. But one thing I learned about oppression on this journey is that oppression is a choice. And sometimes it's hard to swallow that pill of accountability and say, you know what, I'm going to take responsibility for this oppression. But it is a choice. There's manipulation there, yes. But ultimately, you get to choose. You get to choose if you're going to accept that or receive that or believe that or settle for that. And when you decide that you're not, then you open yourself up. You open energetic body up to receiving more things. And so what I learned about the source, or because I don't view God as just a man, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know I
Yeah.
was raised to that we were made in his image, and I do believe that, but the image we perceive is the image of man because we see man every day. But we don't realize that man is a recent manifestation. Man was not the
Mm.
original manifestation. And so we were never made in that image originally. We created that image because we were given the gift of man of creation. We are creators as our source is.
Technically, everything in this world is a direct manifestation or representation of God. The plants, the trees, that's
Every
also a representation of God too.
everything.
You know.
And when we say that we are made in his image, we are energetically sourced. We have we are electromagnetic fields. We are energetically sourced. And so for me, being made in his image is that. It's not the body. It has nothing to do with the body. The body ain't nothing but something we created. Because just like everything else, just like the trees and that building over there and these cars, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so when you view yourself in that light as opposed to just the body, I am a man because I look like, my God, then you stop seeing God as a man. God ain't a man. God is an energy. God is a force. God is lights. God is speed. God is all that shit. Electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Or like we like to call the dark matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like to call God the highest level of understanding and the highest level of consciousness
Yeah.
because all these things are constructed through some type of genius, type of plane. No, it's all mathematics, but it has to come from some higher consciousness. So
Yeah.
that's what God is to me. The highest form of consciousness that could construct all this. You don't necessarily need a body for that, but that level of consciousness, that source power, that omnipotence, that's what God represents to me.
Yeah. And I
Oh,
love this. I love when conversations lead this way because these are challenging conversations for people to have. And so when when I feel the energy of people, communicating with me in this manner, I like to take it there. You know what I mean? Because it's
yeah.
exciting for me. And when I
Mm-hmm.
see that consciousness, so consciousness is one thing, right? But this is my perception, what I believe, and I like to say what I know because I got out of that belief and faith and wish and hope
Yeah.
talk because I know how I already have shown myself how much foresight I have, how much information I hold in my own body, in my own DNA. I've already experienced it enough to say that I know. And so I know that what our source not even created, because I believe that it was something that naturally happened. I believe that our source became
Mm.
aware of itself, and in that awareness, it it held the same way we hold that information in our DNA in our body. Our source held all this information in its energy. And when it became aware of itself, all this information started to have a life of its own. We became entities and pieces of that source that have a life of its own because we're aware of ourselves now. So now we're aware. I'm conscious. I'm aware. I know that I could do this. I could do that. I could do this. I
Yeah.
could do that. I could do whatever I want.
Self-awareness. That's
Yeah.
something I want to ask you about, though. Self-awareness. As beautiful as it is and as amazing as it is, sometimes it can be scary, personally speaking. Like,
Yeah.
once you get to the realization that you have damn near full control of your personal reality, it's like you start to be careful what you do now.
Yeah.
Because the things that you thought you didn't have control over, like you said, you got to swallow that hard pill. You're the reason why a lot of this stuff happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's something we don't usually like to admit. Like
Yeah.
we're actually the reason why we're in these type of situations based on the type of things we keep doing and the person that we are at that moment. And we're not taking accountability for the actions that we do. So once you come to that realization that dang, I'm the reason that I'm in this state and I can also get out of it, it's like you start tiptoeing around what you do now. It's like, dang, anything I do is gonna write my reality into this book that's sealed forever now.
Yes.
So it's cool and amazing, but at the same time, the duality of it is like it's a little nerve wracking, at least to me. you know.
So, and again, yeah, I love that you brought up the duality because I like to talk about this, and this goes into, all that's good and bad, all that's high is low, high and low, all that's, like we like to say, high vibing high or vibing low or whatever, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of broke out of that. And there was a period of time where I was on here ruffling a lot of feathers because I would tell people I don't believe in good and bad. And they'd be like ready to like, why? What you talking about? All this stuff in the world and bada, 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 you know what I mean? And,
What?
you know, and my way of explaining that is that if you put 100 people in a room and you ask each of these people what their definition of good and bad is, you're going to get 100 different answers. Not one of those answers are going to be the same, because we are good and bad is what our perception is. You know what I mean? And so when I talk about self-awareness, and I love that you brought this up, because every time I talk about self-awareness, I talk about it synonymously with self-accountability. They are the same thing. Because when you become aware of who you are and your abilities, then you have to become accountable of your actions, and your, not just your actions, but your emotional body. You have to then become an observer of your thoughts. Because the thing is, it's easy for, when we're under this wave of oppression, it's easy for us to be disconnected with how we feel, and it's easy for us to project that onto something or someone else. It's easy for us to use a crutch. It's easy for us to say that this is the reason why that I'm the way that I am. This is the reason why, you know, that I have the life that I have. But when you get aware that everything that you are feeling and everything that you believe and everything cellular in your body is literally magnetic and literally attracting everything that's coming into your life, now it's like, because you become aware of that, it's just like our source. Because you become aware of that, now you're using a different part of your brain. You're using that frontal lobe. You're and less of that programmed, you know, repetitive, subconscious part of your brain. And so now you become an observer of your thoughts. It's like when somebody buys a car, and this is, you know, to simplify it, because I like to put things into something we understand. When, you know, you might have never seen a certain car before, but then your friend buys that car. And you're like, oh, okay, this is nice. I like this. Now all of a sudden you see this car everywhere you go. Damn, I've seen like 5 of them cars today. I've seen them in black and blue and green, and you never saw that car before. And the thing is, it's not that that car wasn't around, because that car exists. It was around. It's that your brain, because that was never brought into your awareness before, your brain is not thinking about that. Your brain is not scanning the world and picking that car out and attracting that car. But now, because that vehicle was brought into your awareness and to your view and your thought process,
Now you
now
start seeing.
your brain starts scanning. It's like, oh yeah, we thought about that. Let's look at that car over there. Look at this over there. Look at this over there. They might have been all around you, you know, but you weren't paying attention to that. And so when you start seeing how that actually functions, how that actually plays out, then you realize that every time you introduce something to your brain now has had an interaction with it. And when you start to make that repetitive, then now your brain is literally on a cellular level adjusting your body to react to that thought that you had. Your thought becomes a chemical. It becomes something physical, just like all things start vibrationally. You know what I mean? Cars weren't a thing until somebody thought of it, and then they built it. You know what I mean? So that thought starts as a vibration first. It starts as a thought, and then it becomes a chemical in your brain, and your neurotransmitters send that message. It's called neuropeptides. You have a thought, and that thought physically creates a chemical in your brain, and your brain has sensors all through the body. And so what it does is the neurotransmitters take that message, and it takes it, whatever you were thinking, and it travels it down through your body, and it stops at a gland. It brings that message to a gland. And what happens in the gland is it takes what the neurotransmitter brought it, and it turns that into a hormone, an actual emotion, and physical hormones happen in our body. And so now you've had a thought of stress. And so that thought travels down to your adrenal glands, which is synonymous with your solar plexus. Now your adrenal glands is secreting a hormone. And so that's why we get things like nervousness in our stomach. Our stomach starts turning. We get nauseous. You know what I mean? Like, these things are happening in our body every day, and it all starts in the thought. All of it.
Man, whoa. You just scientifically broke down memory and how it affects our body. Whoa. Hold the phone. Did y'all hear that, y'all? She just broke down how we be feeling about certain things and how it'll affect our mental, and then it'll physically affect us based off of a memory and an event that we just experienced, whether we
Yeah.
saw it, heard it, felt it. She
Yeah.
just broke down. Wow.
Yeah, and when I really started to dive into these things, takes me back to what you were saying, how accountable we become for everything that's happening, and how we become then now the observers of our own thoughts. Because now I don't, it's, if I'm paying attention to the things outside of me, they're going to create a thought in my mind. They're going to create an emotion in me, and if it's a loop, then I'm going to keep going through that same thing. This is why we have disease. This is why we have sickness.
I was just gonna say that. Well, that analogy you said works for the bad stuff too.
It is. This is why we have, because when you're thinking, you got to think and this is why I love this conversation. And you started it when you talked about the source. The source don't see nothing as bad or good. It just is. And it's always necessary. And it's always magnetic. It's always attractive. It's never anything else. And so the reason we feel repellences in our life is because we have a hard time accepting things as all happening synonymous with our own thought, with who we are, with what we are essentially asking for from the universe. And the universe is always on our side. It's going to give you everything that you are. So if you wake up in the morning and you're like, man, I'm a woman, right? If I wake up in the morning and I'm like, man, all men suck. They ain't shit. I don't, they
Right.
just suck, all of them. Then guess what? The universe is like, yeah, we with you there. All men suck. And we're going to allow your brain to scan the surroundings around you and literally pick out and find and attract to you all the men that suck. Because that's what you believe. That is a piece of your belief system. And that belief system is not just in your brain. It's now gone into your body. And it's
Yeah. It
now
might not even be the conscious brain. You might be trying to get out, but it's already in the subconscious.
it's in the subconscious. And so what your subconscious actually specifically does, what that piece of your brain does, it's the back part of your brain. We call it the subconscious, but it's has a technical name, which it's going to come to me. It's what it actually does is it takes your repetitive thoughts and it records them, and it gives the body a function. It gives the body a reaction. It gives the body a habit, a pattern, a behavior pattern that aligns with that thought. So now every time, because the body is a second brain. So if you're not using your brain, the body will take over and be your brain for you. And I like to explain this with the car. Okay. When we first learned how to drive a car, you got to think about everything. You get in there, you like, okay, I got to put my seatbelt on. I got to check my rear view mirror. I got to adjust my left mirror. I got to adjust my right mirror. I got to use my blinker. I got to turn the ignition on. Like, you're thinking about every step. But once you've been driving for 25 years, when you grab the keys in the house, your body already knows what you're about to do. It thinks for you. You no longer have to think about any of those things. So now you're putting the radio station on, you're drinking a cup of coffee, you're talking to somebody, you're on the phone, you're looking at, that building they're building over there. At no point are you thinking about the body movements that they're making. Your body has already created a behavior pattern that is attached to that thought. So from the time you touch them keys in the house, your body already is on it. Got it. That's how miraculous our bodies are. It's on it. And so you don't got to think about it. And so the same thing happens with trauma. You know what I mean? If something happened to you, and this is where we go into now the positive and negative, how there really is no negative. The brain doesn't think in negation. It's like a little kid. When you tell little kids, don't touch the stove, what do? They get curious. They're like, oh. And how do they learn how not to touch the stove? Not through words, through experience, because they went and they touched it. Now they got burnt and they're like, oh, hell, I don't want to touch that stove again. Because their brains don't think in negation. Our brains don't think in negation. And because we're taught so much about negativity in the world, we speak so much negation to ourselves, but our brain does not understand that. So if you essentially don't want something and that's all you're thinking about, all your brain knows is that's all you're thinking about. And so your brain thinks you want that. And your brain will scan for it and will attract it. The universe thinks you want that. It will scan for it. It will bring it to you. It will attract it to you. If you decide you don't want to talk to a person anymore, you ever notice that? When you decide you don't want to talk to a person anymore and you spend so much time talking about that person and you're telling your cousin about them and you're like, man, I'm done with them and I don't want to talk to them no more. And you tell them, I don't want to talk to you no more. Don't call me. And you go and you block them and you're looking at old messages. All that energy you're putting into not wanting that person around, what happens? They call you, you bump into them in the store, they show up again, but like it's you're literally attracting. There's no such thing as negation in the energetic world, which is so fascinating how the spiritual world sometimes gets lost in that, you know? And when you really
Whoa.
look at it for how it functions, there isn't negation. And so when you start to this is how I learned how to manifest. When you start to let go of that which you do not desire, instead of, and I call it the seesaw, and I talk about it all the time. I the seesaw, there's two different sides, two ways of doing things, right? Like I like to use religion as an example. A lot of us in the spiritual world, we were on the religious side at first, and we were standing on this side of the seesaw, and we realized that shit got heavy, and we fell. And so we ain't like
Yeah.
that no more. So we go walk over to the other side of the seesaw, and this is spirituality now. And we over here now. We like, man, fuck religion and all that
Mm-hmm.
shit and all
Right.
that stuff. And we, we do that, and we get anti that other side, and we get to the spiritual side, and we're on this side of the seesaw now, and guess what? Shit gets heavy and we fall. And it isn't until we walk back into the middle where we can balance both sides of the seesaw and stand still enough to see how they both work together to find a balance and peace, you know? And so I often, this is where I found that I kind of have created a separate lane of my own in the spiritual community, because, you know, remember, you're attracting what you're putting out. You're attracting who you are. You're attracting what you're paying your attention to. You're attracting what you're focusing on. And remember, none of this is in negation. And so if you are so anti anything to the point where you're just against it, against it, against it, against it, against it, guess what? You attracting that. You're manifesting that. Not just
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, but for people around you.
Facts. And you're
Yeah,
blocking
it's
stuff for
fascinating.
me too. Because I realized, like, if I want to become like the person that's anti-Christian and anti all religions, an experience I just recently had would have never happened. I met with this wonderful brother who was rock solid Christian, but he gave me some of the greatest advice I could have ever heard. But if I was
Exactly.
anti-Christian, I would have blocked out everything he was saying. Because I'm like, oh, I know where this is coming from. Let me just not listen to none of this. Oh my
Exactly.
God, it's crazy to
And
what
let me
you
tell
just
you,
said.
the most consciously aware people in this world come in all shapes and sizes. Some of them are Muslim, some of them are Buddhist, some of them are atheists, some of them are Christian, some of them are spiritual, some of them are fucking tree people, they living in the woods, some of them are
Mm-hmm.
CEOs. And so if you are so anti so many things, then the universe all works together. It's the yin and the yang. You are never going to experience the fullness of what this experience is about to you. You're never going to experience the fullness of what spirituality is. You're never going to experience the fullness of what ascension is, of what elevation is, because you're repressing. Ultimately, what you're doing is repressing, and when you repress, you now have placed a block, you placed a limitation, and you placed a repellent in your own energy. Because you can say, like this. I could say, Clarkson, you know what I mean? You ain't never gonna be able to do that. You're just not. Your mind is so closed off, and you're never gonna get it. Like, you're never gonna be able to do that. But I'm saying that. That's what I'm believing. So am I believing that about you, or am I believing that about myself? I I don't see you as limited. You might tell me, you know what, Renee, I just don't get it. I don't understand that you're talking about. I don't get it. But in my belief system, if you not getting it is your choice. I don't see a limitation on you. I don't see you as limited. You know why? Because I don't see myself as limited. And so if I don't see myself as limited, then I physically cannot see anything or anyone around me as limited.
Wow.
And
That's how I'm able to
I
bring.
love this conversation, because we as
Yeah.
spiritual people place so many limitations on those who are not in our lane. And ultimately, when you start talking about self-awareness and self-accountability, they go hand in hand. Ultimately, if you truly feel that way, then those limitations are only ever your own, because
Mm,
you are only experiencing your own belief system. Your life is literally your own manifestation.
that's so
It's
crazy.
deep.
You know, that's super deep because you just got me reflecting on so many different things that was going in my mind prior, and that's wild. Okay, so with all these things considered, how does astrology fit into this spiritual principle and paradigm? How does that all fit together? Because that's another branch that I entered into. It's helped my life drastically. So how does that all tie in?
So I love it. I love this. I love this because it goes back to when us talking about puzzle pieces. It
Okay.
fits just like any other piece fits. And the reason being is because all of these things that we have are tools. You know what I mean? When we're talking about the wholeness of our existence, right? The beginning, which there is no, we're such continuity that there is no beginning, but we're always seeking that. We're always seeking that knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're going back that far and going back that far and going back that far, you got a lot of people that get into the Bible and get stuck there. You got a lot of people who go then deeper. They go into the Quran. They go into they find the Torah. They find um, the Kabbalah. They find all those information. They get, then they get lost there maybe, or they go even further and they get into like there's all types of different things that because
Yeah.
the world is big,
Buddhism.
so there's all types of different histories, historic factors. People get wrapped up in Egyptian culture, and then they get lost there. You know what I mean? And the thing
Yeah.
is, when you're talking about the whole of our existence, it is all of it. It is not. It is all of it. It is all of it. And when we start talking about things that are inaccurate, because that's a lot of what this journey does for people, is it shines a light on things that are just inaccurate. How I like to call it is telephone. It's not that it's inaccurate, it's that it's misconstrued and it's misleading. We are like telephone. You know what I mean? We throughout the eons and ages, people have been sharing their experiences per their perceptions. And depending on where you're getting it from, you're getting their story. You're getting the story that comes from those people. You know what I mean? And it's going to be different from the story that comes from these people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
like you
you're
said
getting,
before, with 100 people in a room,
yeah,
everybody's gonna see a painting differently. We all look at the
right.
same painting right now. We're gonna imagine something differently about the concept of what it means or whatever. So that's
Yeah.
100% fact.
Yeah. And you're always going to find, and the thing is this, the reason why people get so confused in this journey is because just like, Miss Oklahoma says in the chat, your brain seeks out proof of your thoughts, meaning manifesting what you think and put out. You're manifesting. It's like I like to explain this like Revelations. You know what I mean? Revelations has been a prophesied book for many, many, many years, right?
Yeah.
And all we keep saying is, oh my gosh, look at this stuff coming into reality. Look at this stuff coming true. They just knew what they were talking about. You know what I mean? How I
Right.
view it is, was Revelations prophesied, or were millions and millions of people hearing these words, reading these words, memorizing these words, preaching these words, seeing these words morning, noon, and night, and mass manifesting these things into existence?
That's what happened.
Yeah, we are
Because we don't
manifesting.
realize how powerful we are. If a
We don't
message hits
realize that.
us hard enough, we can manifest that message, whether it's true or not. We can
Exactly.
manifest it. Man,
Just like tarot reading. And this is where what I learned on my tarot journey. I became someone who reads tarot. I read energy, but I only seek to inspire. And the reason why I say that so much is because if you're coming to me and you just see me, and I don't call myself a fortune teller at all. I would call myself a seer before a fortune teller because I have foresight. But I don't consider myself a fortune teller because I do not have control over your manifestations. But
mm,
when you come to me and you see me as a fortune teller and I break down your reading and I tell you, well, yeah, this is what your future is and this is what's going to happen. When you walk away from me, you trusting my word, you now believe what I told you. And so you're going and you're thinking about it and you're internalizing it and you're essentially manifesting that. And so I, as a reader, need to be, in full discernment when I relay these messages from spirit to these people, because all I'm here to do is give you insight into pieces of your energy that you're not aware of, that I have the ability to feel and to see and to be and the foresight of. I'm not here to tell you what your future is because you're the only person that could build your future. So when
that's
I
right.
speak to you,
Affirmation.
I'm speaking to you for insight and I'm speaking to you to inspire. That's it. Because you take that and you get to go do whatever you want with it. But if I tell you, man, you're destined for this and doomed for that, I am literally speaking spells over people. And I think
It's
a
a
lot
lot
of
of
us
people
don't
out here
realize.
like that, Renee. It's a lot of people out here like that, Renee. For
Yeah,
real.
yeah,
Like, oh, I'm sorry, but next week you're gonna lose that relationship, and you probably shouldn't do this because of that. And I've seen this in your future. It's like,
yeah,
whoa.
yeah. And we don't
So yeah,
realize how much power we hold in that respect. And I feel that way also about the spiritual community. I love the spiritual community. I think it's filled with so many amazing and beautiful things, and so much, I mean, knowledge, so much insight, because you're never going to stop learning when you keep connecting with people in this community. You're always going
hmm
to be learning something new, because all of these people, their minds have gone different places. They've researched different things. They know about all types of stuff. So every person you meet, you're going to be learning something different. The one thing that creates the challenge with us, connecting and unifying and creating community, is that we're so anti. And because of that and how the universe functions, we only manifest what we're against and anti, because that's what we put more energy into, rather
man,
than
you're
the
right.
opposite. You know
We
what I
close
mean? We
off
see
so
more
many
of it.
doors on ourselves.
We
Close
see
off
more
so
of
many
it and
doors.
more of it and more of it and more of it.
Oh, I'm
And
just strictly Semitic science. I don't mess with the Moors. I don't mess with no religion. I'm only this because this is facts. And debate
yeah.
me on it. I'll prove you wrong. Like, whoa.
Meanwhile, if you look at the glands in science, they're literally in the same spots on the body, and just a different name as all the chakras in spirituality. So when you really look at everything as a whole, and you take it all into perspective, like, you know what, let me look at this, and that's why I say neutrality is peace. When you find a way to look at everything, the big picture, you get it. It all makes sense. It all adds up. And that's where I feel astrology also comes into play, because astrology is the study of the stars. Well, astronomy is technically the study of the stars, which is considered an acceptable science. Somewhere along the line, astrology was shunned because it has a more spiritual factor in its science. It's still science, but it has a more spiritual factor in its science, because now it's not talking about the physicality of the astronomy, of astronomical placements, but now it's talking about the energy of the astronomical placements. Now it's talking about their relationships, the energy bodies of them. And so now that's a little too spiritual for the world. So the world is like, whoa, we wrote off astrology. But if you go back into all of those different backgrounds, I mean, whether you're talking about, Egyptian culture, or, the Dogons, or, whatever history background you want to go back into, you're going to have philosophers who were studying the stars before we had all this equipment to study stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is what they were doing. And a lot of them were living their lives based on a more astronomical level, as opposed to like the calendar, like how we have the calendar built now. And if you've started to pay attention to astrology at all, or even just the lunar, even just the luminary, the moon, and how she functions, then you realize your body is more synonymous with the luminary placements, with how the planets move, than it is with the calendar, with your 9 to 5 or 24-hour a day schedule. You know what I mean? We've had to fight to fit our body into that schedule, and our bodies don't fit into that schedule. They just don't. You know what I mean?
Okay, so speaking of schedules and astrology and the way the world works and the way we do things, is astrology like a predetermined path that we automatically follow, whether we choose to or not, based on our individual signs, or can we choose to be our best selves and follow our destiny, quote unquote, based on
I
the
love
energies that we naturally have?
It's just like going back to what I said about how source, there is no negative or positive. It just is. It just all is. Astrology, see, we like to look at the negative and the positive in everything. So what we do is we break down the signs. We say, well, this is the good stuff about this sign, this is the bad stuff about this sign, and we tend to focus on those things. But there really isn't any good or bad things about the signs. All signs have challenges, and all signs have strengths. And it's all about balancing, which is it's all a cycle. It's a transit. And what
Yeah.
astrology actually is an expression of the relationship between all of these energy bodies. It's only a tool. It's just there to help you understand your relationship with the it's like when we're walking down the street, right? Say me and you are walking down the street. We are in each other's presence. And so our energy fields are already, our aura fields are already interacting with each other. We feel in each other's
hmm
vibes. We feel in each other's energy. We're having conversation. We're enjoying ourselves. We turn the corner. We get around some other mofos, and the energy changes. And we like, oh wow, because now we around their aura fields and their energy bodies, and now it's a relationship between those aura fields and our aura fields. We're having a relationship, and so we're feeling each other's energy. But you got to think, look at the size of the planets and the size of people. The energy is massive. And so what they're doing is they're transiting around each other, and they're all related. They're having a relationship. They're having an energetic relationship, and those things affect us. And what zodiac signs actually are, they're not, they don't mean as much as we put the emphasis on. What it is the degree placements. It's all about relationships. All astrology is about relationships. It's not about anything else. It's the relationship from where you were. Say you were born in this part of the world and I was born in this part of the world. We're at a different angle, at a different position, at a different, degree angle. We're at a different relationship with these parents, with these planets than someone else. You know what I mean? You were over there and I was over here. We were born in different times. We were born at different places. And so what astrology does is it breaks down the relationship between all those things that were happening and how that relates to you best. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So the reason
it's
why
less
our
about
all
yeah. And zodiacs are just constellations, and what they are archetypes. They just give a characterization to the energy, but the energy is really talking about what the energy of the planet is. And you and I kind of talked about this in our conversation. When you're talking about, the easiest way for me to break astrology down in a basic form is the planets are the what. So these are planetary bodies. They have their own energy. Each of them have their own energy. And so that's the energy that you're working with. That's the energy that you're relating to.
That's what I was about to say. I always thought of astrology as energy I had access to. So personally, with me being Aries sun, I'm like, okay, I have access to the Aries energy. That must be what that means.
And you have access to all the energies, but it's because because the angle, the degree placement, everything, your relationship with these planets and these transits are different. When you get to know your relationship with them, then you can build a better relationship. It's like us, like we've gotten to know each other better since we met. Anybody you want a relationship with, you're like, oh man, I'm interested in this person. I want to build a better relationship with them, and so I want to communicate with them. I want to talk to them. I want to get to know them. It's the same thing with the planets and the transits. We're just getting to know what our relationship with them is better so that we can utilize it better. It's a tool so that we can find balance in those relationships rather than miscommunication and mistrust and all of that stuff. It's the same thing like if we build a relationship with a person. And so when we get to know that, man, this was the position of these planets when I was born at this period of time, and these planets are interacting with each other in such a way, you know what I mean? The planet is the energy, and the zodiac that it's in front of, it's giving it they're having a relationship with each other. So what the zodiac does is it affects the energy, it impacts the energy of the planet that's in front of it because they're next to each other, they're relating. And so when it impacts, it's just like when me and you were cool and chilling and vibing, but then we got around some other people. Now we a little hot, we a little on 10 a little bit, we got attitudes now, we talking different. It's the same thing with the planetary bodies. When they move through certain zodiac signs, that archetype of that zodiac sign is interacting with that planet, and so it's impacting its energy. And sometimes that's a benefit. Sometimes it uplifts it, but sometimes they kind of mesh. They don't mesh as much, and so sometimes it brings a challenge to it.
I'll definitely build a relationship with my Mars and Venus placements. Like I've slowly built a better relationship with those. I feel more connected to those parts of myself now because I've, like you said, talked to them in a way and just slowly built that relationship. So okay.
Yeah. And then you understand how they and what the house placements do is it shows you where that shows up in your life more than anything. You know what I mean? So the planets are the energy that you're working with. The zodiacs are just they're the archetype of how wherever that planet shows up, whatever zodiac sign that planet shows up in, that zodiac is giving that energy an archetype, a characterization. And then the houses express where in your life this is showing up more than anything. So, say you have sun in, what house is your sun in? Do you remember? So I think you had sun in like 11th house or something like that. So,
11th house.
let's just, for example, say you have sun in the 11th house. The
Which
11th
my
house
Gemini
is,
is
yeah,
my ascendant.
the sun is your personality. It's who you're becoming. It's your core. It's your personality. But it's not. This is why a lot of people don't relate to their zodiac signs when they're growing up, because your sun sign is not. You haven't even become your sun sign yet for a long time. You know what I mean? When you're a teenager, your sun sign is, you don't even know that part of yourself yet. That's something you grow
Mm.
into. It's something that you learn. It's part of your journey, and you're more gonna be your rising sign growing up, because that's how you view the world. That's how your first impression. That's the first impression that you give to the world based upon your views of the world, and and that is what people see when they first meet you. So a lot of times you're not even going to relate to that sun sign when you're growing up. When you hit my age, when you start being in your mid 30s and you're like, your sun sign, you like, oh yeah, I'm all of that. Because now your experience has grown you into that potential, into that person that you were becoming, that personality that you were becoming. And it's not to say that little remnants of that doesn't come out in your upbringing, because like for me, my sun sign is in the death and rebirth. No, the 11th house represents societies. It represents other people's children. It represents humanitarianism. You know what I mean? This is your connection with the outside world, with community, 11th house. And so when you've got the sun there, you're naturally a humanitarian based individual. You're someone who likes to get involved in community. You're someone who would find solace, maybe joining societies, joining, groups or whatever, or creating groups. You're someone who sees the forest as opposed to the tree. Does that make sense? But your sun sign there, that brings now an archetype. That brings your personality to that field. So that brings your personality to that part of your life, to those interactions. My sun is in the fourth house, which is the house of home and family. That's where you grow up. That's what your upbringing was like. You know,
So the houses are damn near more important than the
they're
overall
very
person.
important. It's very important to understand all of that, because then you piece it all together. So when I because remember, they're relationships. So people think, oh, this is my sun, this is my Mercury, but it's really more about the bits and pieces don't really mean much by themselves. It's when you put it all together and you build the relationships, then you see how they all work together, and that brings you understanding. Like the for me, the sun in the fourth house is home. That's home for me. So you might be somebody I don't know. You're gonna get my Taurus, or my Taurus side, or my Gemini even, because that's my rising. That's
Mm.
my moon sign. You're gonna see those pieces of me when you first meet me. You're not gonna necessarily see my Leo. Why? Because my Leo comes out at home. So the people in my household see my Leo. They see me break out in song in the kitchen, random dancing and singing. They see all of that because my son is in my place of home. If I feel at home with you and I learn you and I feel comfortable with you, you're gonna start seeing my Leo come out. You're gonna be like, oh, okay, she breaking out, she free, and you're gonna start
Mm.
that. Now I'm in my mid 30s. I've now built a relationship with my sun sign. That is my personality. It's now breaking out more. So you're gonna see it more often now, more in public now. But in my early years, that Leo didn't come out. That Leo did not come out. That Leo came out if I was at home, if I felt completely comfortable with you, because of that placement. And it helps you to make sense of yourself, because I never thought I was like Leo anything. But it was always in there. I was always creative. I was always writing poetry. I was always doing all these things. But the performance part of it didn't come out unless I was really, really at home and really comfortable.
Mm.
Now, because I'm so much more aware of myself, so much more comfortable with myself, I understand those parts of myself, and I've now understood also its relationship with other placements in my life, because there are other reasons why. You know what I mean? That's something that happens only at home. So now I understand the relationships, and now I get to bring them all together. I get to bring balance between them. So now I'm way more comfortable with my Leo. Comes out now on IG. My Leo comes out now when I'm meeting people, outside.
Mm.
You know.
So the fourth house represents the home, basically.
It talks about your upbringing. So it's what your upbringing was like, which represents a lot of
Mine's in Virgo.
yeah,
My fourth house is Virgo.
yeah, your fourth house in Virgo. So it talks a lot about your upbringing, your maternal figure. There's a lot of things that fall in there, and it'll also, because that was your upbringing, it'll also have a lot to do with how you raise your home when you get older. You know what I mean? So sometimes when you take a look at at that your upbringing, and you take a look at and this is what I mean about the relationships, because now we're talking about the fourth house. We're also talking about the moon placement, because the fourth house talks a lot about that maternal figure. Your moon placement is directly connected to your mama or anyone who was your maternal figure. And because that maternal figure dictates a lot of your predisposed emotions, the things that you're attached to feeling growing up. And so those things now have a huge effect on how you bring up your household when you get older. So you're going to find all that in the fourth house. All of those things have a relationship, and you're going to, everything you find in that fourth house, and what's also, it's called aspects, the angles around it, how it's aspected to things around it. Those things will show you, okay, this is like, if I'm an astrologer, I'm looking at your chart, I can probably pinpoint some things from your childhood based upon some of those placements. And I can also probably figure out what kind of upbringing, what kind of way that you'll bring your house up when you get older. You know what I mean? It's like when somebody grows up dirt poor and they were starving all the time. So then they become a person who like has to have the fridge full. Like they can't, like it could be like still full and they're like, I gotta go to the grocery store. It's those things affect you. And so those kind of, when you get to know, like, astrology is an endless learning lesson. Like, you're going to always be learning stuff. But when you start to see patterns and see things like that, you can tell things like that in people. You can say, okay, this has a lot to do with why you're that way in your house now. This has a lot to do with why you're bringing your children up in that way. You know what I mean? It's fascinating. It's very fascinating. But it's all relational. All relational.
It makes so much sense. I have a lot more homework to do in astrology now.
Yeah, and I challenge you to just let it flow, because I have a Gemini moon. My research, I'm a research junkie, and so I got lost in like tons and tons of endless nights of research, just trying to learn all these things. And what I realized is that we are ever evolving creatures. And this is where I ended up from Western astrology into sidereal, because many of you know that I actually follow sidereal astrology now as opposed to Western. Now, when I explain that to people, I don't say, peace, my love. I don't say that one is right or wrong. And that's what you'll hear a lot in the astrology community. You'll hear that, no, Western is accurate. No, sidereal is actually accurate. No, Vedic is actually accurate.
I was just going to ask you about Vedic. I just recently heard about that.
Yeah. So Vedic is the astrology that you'll find mostly in the Eastern world, in the Eastern world. A lot of, in that Indian countries like that, they're practicing Vedic astrology. Here in the Western world, we're practicing Western astrology, and we're practicing, so what it is that we follow the placement of the planets roughly about 2,000 years ago. So what happens in Western astrology is there's no change. There's the planet, the sun sign, for example, it's going into this sign on this day every year. You know what I mean? Every year. Right. It's always going like every year, this month is Leo, this month is, Sagittarius, this month is Gemini. And that has never changed. And so that's where Western kind of, where I kind of fell off of Western after a while. And I'll go back. I'm going to go back to that because I don't want anybody thinking there's a right or wrong. It's just like like I said about the source, there's no right or wrong or any of that. It's all ties together. So when I got into sidereal, what I realized is that sidereal actually follows astronomy, and it's the same way we don't stay the same. We change, you know what I mean? We get wrinkles and shit, and we become older and we become more mature or whatever. The planets do too. They're not always in the same spot that they always were. And so what Vedic is it's a more updated version of the actual current transits of the planets. And so in degree wise, it will tell you that these. Okay. Okay.
I saw you yesterday, but I didn't bother with you. I just say you sit out here. They don't want people sitting.
Okay, that's fine.
You're welcome to sit. If it wasn't.
Yeah, it's no problem.
They don't mind sitting on the other side where the grass is, but it's wet.
No, it's no problem. No problem.
So they still should be a bit wide.
Thank you, Bob.
I'm learning so much in this live. Woo, I learned so much. Appreciate the comment, y'all. Somebody said, love this live. Me too. I love the live too.
Sorry guys, I'm like, y'all know I'm out here. But what was I saying? I lost myself.
Vedic astrology and the correlation between the newer versions.
Yeah, so what Vedic actually says is that these planets are no longer sitting in the same place that they were sitting, 2000 years ago. It's saying that they're now roughly 24 degrees off from those, what we're used to in Western astrology.
Mm.
And so, for example, Leo, you know what I mean? We know in Western astrology that Leo's going to start end of July. So when end of July starts, Leo's sun sign is starting, and now it's going to end probably end of August at some point.
Mm.
So the thing is, and this is the sun placement we're talking about alone. So it's different. Each of these planetary bodies are moving in different timing. You know what I mean? Some of them are slower moving, some of them are quicker moving. So when we're talking about the sun sign, it's roughly staying in a zodiac placement for a good 30 days or something like that. Peace, my love. And so Western will tell you every year the sun is going into Gemini at this point, and then it's going to go into the next sign, Cancer, at this point, right? But what Vedic says is, well, the planets aren't sitting in that place anymore. They're not. So
Mm.
in actuality, the sun is transiting in front of the zodiac sign of Leo a few weeks later, a couple weeks later now than it used to.
Weeks later?
Yeah, and it's sitting in there a little later than what it used to. And so that's why now we're saying, okay, Vedic is going to tell you, well, no, if you have a late July birthday, you're actually still a Cancer. You're not a Leo. And you don't turn Leo
Wow.
yet until more mid-August. And now if you go into the
Mm.
beginning of September, where you would think that you're a Virgo, you're actually still Leo until you get a little bit into September. And let me tell you why this fascinates me a lot. And I'm gonna throw out a couple examples there. And this is something you can go run off and research yourself. Because I feel like we're evolutionary. So for me, I like to tell people, because people ask me, like, what do you think is right or wrong? And I'll tell
Mm.
them, well, I think that we're evolving creatures. And I think that when you find Western astrology works for you. It makes sense. I look at it as body, mind, spirit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Western astrology is like your most physical connection with astrology, and it's a great tool for you because Western, you live in a Western world. It's that surface layer. It's the first thing that's going to
Yeah,
relate
that's what
to.
I started at.
Yeah, so when you get deeper into it, then you might end up finding Vedic, and you might be more drawn to that. And that, to me, is the mind. That's you evolving, and so now you're evolving into that next phase of the astrology. And then when you get into like the spirit, like Free just said, what if I'm a dragon? Then you've got draconic astrology, which to me talks more about the spirit, the trajectory of your spirit. And so that's my
Mm.
perception of those astrologies. I don't tell anyone is right or wrong. I just let them know, like, it's an evolution process. You know what I mean? It's a learning process. And when you're looking at these placements in yourself, you view them, you connect with them differently. So when I was looking at my Western chart, I connected with it. But then when I, learned my my Vedic chart, or when I learned my sidereal chart, because that's another part, we're going to talk about that. But when I learned that part, I realized, damn, I connect a lot more with this. This makes more sense.
Mm.
So I'm gonna throw out a couple examples. Like, let's talk about Beyonce, right?
Mm.
Beyonce's got an early September birthday, so we know Beyonce to be a Virgo.
Right.
But when you get to know the characteristics of a Virgo and the characteristics of a Leo, you know what I mean? You can very clearly see that Beyonce is a Leo.
Oh snap. Uh-oh.
She's all Leo. She's a
Uh-oh.
performer. She's all Leo. Same thing with Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is a Virgo as well, and he is
Michael?
all Leo, all Leo. Same thing with Barack Obama. Barack Obama is a Western Leo, because he's got a early August birthday. But if you
Mm.
look at Barack Obama, that's Cancer all the way. Look at the way he talks, his
Mm.
calm
Yeah.
demeanor, how he relates. He's so relatable no matter what he's talking about, how he brings people in. That's Cancer all the
Yeah.
way. That's not Leo. And
So
so
I
when you
need to
start
look at mine through those lenses. I need to look at my chart. Okay. Okay.
look at them rappers, go look at Kanye, go look at all of these people. These people you're going to find that some of them relate more to that sign previous than the one that their birthday actually falls in Western. And you'll see the characteristics. And for me, that was it was like, okay, this adds up. This adds up. This makes sense. Yeah,
I
this
put a
makes
little bit
sense.
of astrology
It's
into
deep.
the book, like this, some of the basics, but now I think I want to go deeper into it now because like I just put the sun and the
Yeah.
moon and the rising in there just to give people a taste of what I knew.
Yeah.
But now I think I want
Yeah.
to go deeper just to what you just after I learned it myself and implemented. That's wow. You said regular astrology,
Yeah.
Western. You said dragonic astrology. What?
Yeah. Draconic astrology.
Draconic astrology. I've never
I
heard of
know.
that
Yeah.
one before.
A whole nother realm over there.
But the
But
dragons
yeah,
resonate.
yeah. So another thing about, so Vedic, what Vedic does is it follows that difference, that 24-degree difference of the placements of the planets. And
Mhm.
then you got sidereal. So now sidereal says, yeah, yes, Vedic is using a more accurate timeline of the transits, but there's also this little period of time when the planets are now transiting beyond the constellation of Scorpio. But before they even get to the constellation of Sagittarius, there's this other constellation called Ophiuchus that sits right behind them, but in the middle. And so for a little period of time, they're transiting in front of Ophiuchus. And so now sidereal throws that 13th sign in there and says there's a period of time, a short period of time between these two signs that each of the planets transit through.
13th sign.
13th sign.
Whoa, you're breaking all concessions right now. What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's dope. It's dope information. It really is. And, people, the one thing that I like to say, to stress upon, is that these things are tools. And it all, again, starts in how you're looking at it. Because if you're looking at it as how, as, oh my gosh, this controls me, like that, like Mercury retrograde, everybody's like, Mercury's in retrograde. Oh my gosh, we can't
No, it
drive.
was
We can't
over.
sign contracts.
Yeah.
Don't talk to your boyfriend. Like, and people freak out. And, a retrograding planet is not actually moving backwards. And that's something you'll hear a lot. You'll hear people saying that, and when a planet's in retrograde, that it's moving backwards, but it's not. We don't have the sight. It's like when you're on a train, right? And a train is going around the track, right? The train is always moving forward, but then say it goes around a bend and you're in this first car right here. If you look out the window, you're going to see the last car. You're going to see the back of the train. And so for a moment, you're going this way, and that part of the train looks like it's going that way. But the whole time, but it's still moving forward. And so that's kind of what's happening when the planets are in retrograde, to kind of put it into a bit of perspective.
Okay. But I never really knew what retrograde meant on a deeper level like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just a slowing down. It's like, because of that viewpoint, it slows that energy down for us a bit. And for many people, see it as a hindrance, see it as a big ass, hindrance. But for me, I see it as a period of retrospect. You know what I mean? It's a
Mm-hmm.
period for
Some of
you
the
to
greatest
really,
things that have happened to me have been during a retrograde or a full moon. Some of the greatest things that have happened to me during those times.
exactly.
So,
And because it's a period for you to retrospect and for you to really, it puts you in a bit of control, because since it slows it down, that energy for you, and it gives you a time to work with it. It puts you in a bit of control. You get to really, like, control the direction of that energy. And that's what I see those retrogrades as mostly. It's like you really get to design it almost. You get to decide, like, this is what this energy is for me right now. This is how I'm going to utilize it. This is how I'm going to work with it. And so, you can do that at any point of the time of the year. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be in retrograde, but when that planet is in retrograde, if you're looking at it in that way, then it's going to be different than, oh my gosh, I can't do this and I can't do that and I can't do this. It's really fascinating.
wow.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah. Astrology is it is. And the
almost,
stars, if you go back into the history of, just anything, any spiritual background, any origin of people, any indigenous people, you're going to find a lot about the stars. There was a lot that they knew about themselves and knew about who they were with their connection with the stars. And the way I look at the stars is their heavenly bodies. You know what I mean? Those are when you hear, you know, in religion people talk about heavenly bodies, we're thinking about like God, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or God, Jesus, spirit, whatever you want to call it. In my opinion, the planetary bodies are heavenly bodies, you know what I mean? Because they are beyond the firmament of our atmosphere. You know what I mean? They are beyond space and time, which we have a relationship with, which we are capable of being as well. But because we're here, which for me would be the hell, you know what I mean? I mean, it's really a mindset.
Yeah.
But because of that limitation, it becomes that way. But when you can interact them with each other, when you start to become aware of yourself and you utilize all of these tools that are given you, whether it's, you know, learning historical facts, whether it's learning, you know, about astrology, whether it's, you know, meditating, whatever that is for you, whatever that means for you, connecting with yourself, because what meditation actually means is to become aware of, to get to know, to become acquainted with. And so when you're meditating, you're just becoming acquainted with yourself, you're learning yourself. And however that works for you, these things are all tools, and it's connecting you with what seems to be outside of yourself on this planet, but isn't. And so when you get into that space of your mind and that consciousness, then you're bringing it together and you're allowing yourself to experience yourself in this body, in this physical realm, but also in the spiritual realm, and experiencing spirit, you know, out experiencing life outside of space and time, as well
Yeah.
as in this physical body, all
It's
together.
starting,
You
it's
know,
starting to glitch up on you a little bit. It's messing
it's
with us.
deep.
But yeah. Renee, I'm so glad we had this live, because now, after what I just learned, I can introspect and I can actually take what
Yeah,
I just learned and really take myself to the next level. It's like astrology has changed my life, like on a whole scale. Now I know I can go even further beyond now. There's so many more stages ahead of me. I'm actually excited to take on
yeah,
this next journey. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And I'm sure that this live was written in the stars somewhere. I'm sure it was. Because
yeah.
this right here, this is what's going on.
And on that note, leaving it
I
on
want
that
to thank you
note,
for
you
taking
know,
out
I
the
like
time
that.
to do this.
I
Hmm?
like, you know, that statement. It was written, but I like it in the terms of we are the writers. You know what I mean? Because I think sometimes we get lost in this.
You're chopping out real bad, Renee. Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. It's just real,
Yeah.
real choppy. You're not trying to let us do it.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to. So I wanna get off of here and save this. Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
I can hear you now. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
close with a peace to Universal Family. We love
Yeah.
all y'all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So I think I'll leave the caption, what I was just saying about it was written, and we are the writers. But that's all I
Okay,
was saying. I'm gonna drop it in the caption though. Peace to
cool.
you. It was beautiful, and I can't wait to do it
You
again.
too. We got to do this again for
Yeah,
sure.
most definitely. Most definitely. Thank you
One
so much.
love, everybody. Oh, no problem. Thank you for taking out the time to do this. This is amazing.
It was a
Love you so
pleasure.
much. Peace, everybody.